Crank it up, let it roll. Stars and stripes in my soul. Steel toes on, boots in the gravel. Heartland truth on every channel. Open Bible, flag on the wall. We say what we believe or we don't talk at all. This is red, white, and raise hell. Cowboy hat, church bell can't scare us into silence. We were born to rebel from the back road to the beltway. We won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raise hell. We back the badge, we guard the border. We love our guns and law and order. They try to shame every word we say, but we don't bow down, we just press play. This is red, white, and raise hell. Cowboy hat, church bell can't scare us into silence. We were born to rebel from the back road to the bell. Hey, we won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raise hell.
All right, who's ready? Who is ready to raise hell? Red, white, and raise hell. Good Monday morning. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here on Strictly Speaking Unfiltered. It is a Monday. It is the 12th morning of the first month in the year of our Lord, 2026. And we've got a lot of work to do today. We do that every single day, but we continue to grow in our exposure. We grow in our impact, and we're going to end up saving this country. We're going to end up saving this republic. I had a really, really, really great meeting in Medina just this past Sunday with a really, really strong group of patriots. Medina County Friends and Neighbors is, of course, what I'm talking about. Lisa Woods was kind enough to invite me to talk to a whole lot of patriots. You know what she informed me after the fact? They had about 40% more first-time visitors to the Medina. They do this every week. To Medina County Friends and Neighbors, 40% more first-time visitors. I'm doing that math in my head based on the numbers that she gave me to that event that day. And that either means there were a whole lot of people here that just wanted to hear what I had to say, which I hope is not the case. But most importantly, what I think it means is more people are ready to activate, to get involved in doing what I just said, saving this republic. We outlined a really, really important game plan during that 2 hours or so that we spent together on Saturday morning. And new faces and new voices and new activists, new patriots being involved was so huge. I just love to see that. And I look forward to speaking to more groups and more places and continuing to drive up our impact, because that's what this whole thing is all about. So I'm energized here for a Monday morning after a strong weekend. And I hope you are as well, especially after you watched the weekend, activity in the typical blue hellholes. I hate to call them anything, derogatory like that, but what else are you going to call cities that decide anarchy is the way, that decide burning things down, attacking vehicles, blocking roadways, limiting access to emergency vehicles, getting into the faces of and harassing and obstructing and impeding law enforcement officers? What else do you call that? When this is what not just some small number of community members do, but when they are encouraged to do this by their leadership, when they're encouraged to do this by their mayors or their congressional representatives, governors, and so on and so forth, when they push that in their communities, well, it's not just, like I said, a small fragment. It's not just some people that you can kind of push to the side and ignore. They gain. Listen, I'm not going to start ranting about this at this early hour. I have a lot of things that I have to announce, including the final creation of our locals community, which is huge, very, very important. But you know what? It occurs to me what the left is doing. And I think the left always does this, generally speaking, but certainly much, much more over the course of the Trump years and the 10 years since Trump, now 11, since he burst on the scene, announcing his candidacy in summer of 2015. And now we're headed to, spring and summer of 2016, or 2026, rather. So it's been about 11 years of Trump. What the left has decided to do is convince the American people that when somebody like Trump, in other words, somebody who's ultra conservative and who is, MAGA and what everything that we've come to know as America First and so forth, when people like this are in power, chaos results, anarchy results, complete disorder results, violence results. This is all because of the Trump presidency, is what they want to convince you. And the reality is they're the ones causing all of it so that they can then say, if you want to return to normalcy, if you want to return to a time when there aren't constant, riots in the streets and so forth, then you need to vote for Democrats. They create anarchy, they create chaos, they create violence, they create, the disruption, and then they turn around and tell you that you have to vote for us if you want all of this stuff to end. And damn it, if they're not right. It's like when we're in power, we replace the mobs of people on the streets protesting Trump. We replace them with mobs, we call them caravans, of illegal aliens coming into the country by way of the southern border. But you know what? At least there's no chaos on the streets. It's a really, really interesting shell game that they have found, that they have put together, which is why we have to ensure that they never regain power. That's the bottom line. I understand that this country is, we're by our nature, we're supposed to be bipartisan, but I think bipartisanship left the building. And now it is just straight up partisan. And you're either on the good side or the bad side. You're on the right side, you're on the wrong side. And I'm sorry to make it, come down to that, but I really, truly believe that's what it is. That's where we are right now. So we're going to talk more about that as we go this morning. Got a really nice show lined up. Marcel Sturbich is coming back. Marcel Sturbich, candidate for Secretary of State. Two pieces of news for him. Number one, he just received the GOP endorsement in Ohio's eighth largest county in a very thorough endorsement setting, meaning their model as far as interviewing and questioning and so on and so forth each of the candidates. They gave Robert Sprague a full opportunity. They gave Marcel Sturbich a full opportunity, and they came away 70% of the vote in the Butler County GOP said Marcel Sturbich for Secretary of State. He knows more. He's passionate about it. He's completely uncompromised, and he's not a career politician. And they kind of basically said that Robert Sprague is some of those things. 70%. So we're going to talk to him about that, but we're also going to talk to him because he's got his finger on the pulse of fraud in the state of Ohio, which is so much bigger and more widespread than anybody realized. And we're getting more information about that as time goes on. So he's going to join us, but not until 8:30. So back half of the show, we'll have Marcel Sturbich on this morning. For this hour, in the first hour and a half or so together, we're going to spend some time reacting. We're going to spend some time reading what you have to say in the chat, and also telling you about some very important developments with, strictly speaking, Unfiltered. Our locals community is now active. If you don't know what I'm talking about, let me pop this up on the screen super quick. This is a button people have been asking me about, by the way, for some time now. They've been saying, I keep clicking join, and because I'm telling everybody all the time to follow the channel, and they think that means click the join button. So for a few weeks now, we got to keep this thing up to speed here. There we go. But for a few weeks now, they're saying that they have been saying, I should say, that why isn't that working? I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted here. I'm trying to get the video up to speed here. But anyway, the red join button down there, you see that red join button? People thought that that's how you follow, and that's not how you follow. That's how you join the locals community, and it wasn't set up yet. The page wasn't ready yet, but that's like kind of an automatic thing there. It is now set up, and now when you click join, let me show you what you'll be taken to. You're going to be taken to the locals page. Okay, this is the Strictly Speaking locals community. It's called the locals community, and what it is, it's the war room. Quite frankly, it's the war room. It's going to act a little bit like Facebook, but just for us, just for subscribers to locals. And you can subscribe as a free contributor, or you can subscribe as a paid contributor, which of course helps us keep this entire thing rolling. It's extraordinarily important, actually. But there's going to be content that we allow and that we provide on the paid side, which is only for VIP members, that we cannot provide on the other side. But we want you to be a part of it in one way or the other. So, Rumble is the show. This is the presentation. Locals is the war room. Okay, that's where we get together when you strategize. Like right now, for example, if I just pop up the actual live show, and I can do that, you can see the chat is going. So this is going to look a little bit redundant on your screen, I guess, because obviously you're seeing your own chat, and then you're seeing this display of the chat. But you can see the chat room here, and people who all get together and talk. This is a good place to just talk about what we're doing on the air at the time. Absolutely. But it's not the place to strategize. It's not the place to get together and post and comment and organize one another as far as what our goals are, whether it be, in the state or in a district or what have you. That's what locals is all about. So you need to find your way to that join button now if you have not already joined it. But click join, and then start offering your suggestions, your ideas, responding to those that are already there. I literally just launched it yesterday. All right. So it is brand new. It's newer than the show is, for crying out loud. But become a member of the locals community. As I say, just click the red join button, and that's really all you need to know. Click that join button. I'm going to try to share the screen a little bit so I can, yeah, there we go. So we can see one another, and we'll flop those around. So, it's really, really important. So, if you could join the locals community, in addition to all of the other things that we have been working toward, we're going to have extended commentary. We're going to have town hall meetings. We're going to have exclusive interviews that I won't air on this regular Rumble show. I will only air in the locals community. So, you want to be a part of that. And that's on the VIP side. So, if you want to be a part of that, please join and consider giving a gift subscription to somebody else. I think it's $9.99 a month or $10 a month or whatever it is what it's going to be in that community to support the channel. And if you want to buy one for yourself and buy one for somebody else, God bless you. That would be amazing because that's what we need. We need to do. All right. So as I say, and welcome chatters, by the way. I don't want to ignore you. I just kind of used you for a moment there as a prop, but let me see who's in the house today. B. Morgan is in early. CAD is in. HB Tunes, Joanne, I see you. I am Roz. I see you, Roz. And I hear you, Roz. Janie, Big Jake, Lisa, Sarah, looks like Donna, B Butts, SRL, Jan, CMG, KC John, Brian, keep them coming. Keep them coming. Don't forget when you get in. Hit the join button to join the locals community. Hit the like button. That's the thumbs up button, of course, that helps the algorithms, helps us get algorithmic traction. And, of course, follow and subscribe. Those are all, of course, the details that we give you about all the time. All right. I want to go now into something else. On Friday, the last hour of the week that we were broadcasting, I interviewed Casey Putsch, which is interesting because I mispronounced his name when I introduced him as Casey Putsch. And what's funny about it is I asked his team members before, when I scheduled the event, when I scheduled the interview, I said, can you confirm the pronunciation of the last name? And they said, rhymes with Hutch. They put it in quotes, rhymes with Hutch, like a rabbit hutch. And I said, hey, Casey Putsch, how you doing? He said, no, it's Putsch, like put your money where your mouth. Okay. Sorry about that, Casey. Meant no disrespect at all. But I interviewed Casey Putsch, who wants to be governor of the state of Ohio, or at least that's the working narrative that he's operating under. Does he? I wanted to introduce him to you. I wanted to introduce him to me because since last February, when Vivek Ramaswamy announced he was running for governor and Donald Trump turned around immediately and said, my dude, that's my guy. I endorse him for governor. And then, later on into the spring, the GOP, the state GOP, ORP, they endorsed him as well. And that was enough to chase pretty much everybody else who was interested out of the race, including Dave Yost, the attorney general, who had been planning to run, I think, for some time. But he saw the handwriting on the wall. He saw the funding for Vivek. He saw the endorsement of President Trump, which carries so much weight in the state. So basically, the deck was cleared. And Vivek had spent basically the better part of 2025, as the sole Republican candidate. That changed very, very late in the year. In fact, right before Christmas, I guess it was, that this car guy, this mechanic and this engineer who's, developed something called an Omega car, which is supposed to get 100 miles to the gallon and be clean burning and everything else. I can't remember all the specifics about it. I'm not a gearhead. I don't quite get all of those things. But Casey, the car guy, decides to enter this race. And he started to get I don't want to say a lot. He started to get some online traction. Every time I would go on my Facebook and other places in conservative circles, I was seeing a lot of conservative Republicans with whom I chat on a regular basis talking about pushing this guy for governor. That this, Vivek is rubbed people the wrong way, this or that or the other thing. And, this is a better choice. I better find out who this guy is. So I looked up a few things about him and I found his contacts and I said, let's get him on the podcast. So we had him on for a full uninterrupted hour on Friday. And all I wanted to do was listen. I didn't want to get into a debate. I didn't want to get into an extensive back and forth the way I do with a lot of my guests, because I have a lot of things I want them to answer for. He didn't have anything to answer for. He's new. I just wanted to listen and learn. What do you know? You want to run one of the most important states in the country. You want to manage a $90 billion budget. You want to manage a massive workforce. You want to staff 26 cabinet positions. What do you know? What do you know about governing? What do you know about government? What do you know about the state? What do you know about, things other than the garage? And so I wanted to find that out. What is your apparatus for winning this thing? All right. What are your resources? What kind of money do you have on hand? What kind of PACs or super PACs are you working with to generate funds? Because it's a long road to November, and it's an expensive one if you want to win, especially if your name is virtually unknown in political circles. And we all know, we've talked about this, Casey Putsch is not an unknown. He's got 350,000 followers on his YouTube channel for his car stuff. Very well known in that world. Political world, very much less so. I'd never heard of him until all of this in December. So, it's a long road to November, and it's an expensive road, and we have to beat Amy Acton. What can you tell us? And so I kind of essentially got, I kind of got a vibe in that hour as I just sat back and listened. You notice I just kind of asked a question and got out of the way and let the man talk. Which is really all I wanted to do. Let me replace this because I want to let you see the whole thing in a moment here. All right, I did that backwards. My bad. There we go. No, it still doesn't want to put me up there. I'm sorry. I'm saying, my friend Brian once told me this is building is like playing Tetris. And I think it's true. I'm constantly sliding one piece to another, and I'm unable to get that off the screen now. Can I split it? Yeah, I can split it. And that's one way to do it. Anyway, Tetris. Now I'm chasing my squirrels up a tree. Tetris was a great game in the 80s, by the way. There, that's how I can switch it over. All right. I'll let you see the rest of that one. I'm ready to play what I want you to hear. So I had Casey on, and I asked him, what do you know about the budget? What would you cut? What are your priorities to keep? I haven't read the budget. Wait a minute. You want to be the governor, and it's a $90 billion budget, and you're doing interviews, and you're introduced, and the primary is in 4 months, and you haven't read the budget? I think what he told me was, quote, I have seen it, but I haven't read it. Well, what does that mean? You've seen it. I literally, you saw it, decided I'm not interested in what it says. I just saw it. I saw a copy of it. I saw a screenshot of it or what, but I didn't read it. Okay. That's a little bit concerning, but 4 months, you have 4 months. I asked him about his plans for economic development in the state. I asked him about his plans for fixing education in the state. And if you watch the video, if you watched us live on Friday, what you heard was basically a whole lot of screaming at Vivek Ramaswamy. I didn't interrupt it, and I wasn't there to defend Vivek Ramaswamy. I made it very clear to Casey that my goal is to win in November. And it's not just a goal because, everybody likes to be a winner. This isn't the ABC's Wide World of Sports in 1978. The thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. It's not just winning for the sake of saying, yay, we won, we're the best. We're talking about survival. We're talking about survival as individuals, as employees, as business owners, because handing the state to Dr. Lockdown, Amy Acton, is a recipe for death. Literally in some cases, figuratively in others, right? We saw what she did in 2021 and 2022. We saw what she did when Mike DeWine gave her the keys to the state and let her establish all the policy as the director of Ohio Health, closing down businesses, closing down schools, being among the most horrific, heavy-handed deniers of medical freedom in the country. It's funny when you look at how most observers saw COVID play out. and you look at the worst offenders in terms of, crackdowns on medical freedom, whether or not you have to take a shot to be able to go to work, whether schools were open, whether you can go to church, whether you can go visit your loved ones in the hospital, visit your loved ones that are in hospice care or are dying alone, all of that garbage. The worst names that come up are Democrat governors. You think of what Cuomo did, Andrew Cuomo in New York at the time. You think of what people like Gavin Newsom did. You think of what people like Pritzker did in Illinois. You look at the worst governors in terms of taking away the rights of people because of the pandemic, and they're all Democrats except for one, Mike DeWine. Because Mike DeWine handed control of the state over to a Democrat, Amy Acton. And she surged that power ahead, boy, in ways that we are still paying a price for. There are still countless numbers of Ohio business owners who are now working for somebody else because they had their businesses, their lifetime dreams, their entrepreneurship taken from them. Now they got to go work for somebody else because their business was closed forever when Amy Acton shut them all down. There are people now who are in different jobs than they were a few years ago because they worked for one of those businesses that was shut down, and so they lost their opportunities. I can't lose. We cannot lose to Amy Acton. And that was my point to Casey Putsch. So I need to know what you know and I need to know what resources you have to win this fight. And like I said, overwhelmingly what I got yelled at. And I think Casey made it very clear to me he wasn't yelling at me, he wasn't mad at me, and he said that. And I said, no, it's fine. Do you? I'm just going to ask the questions. And he proceeded to do his thing. And it appears to me that, the angry man is the role that he's playing in this fight. He's going to be the angry man. He's going to be the mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore guy. And we're going to rally around, Ohio. And Vivek Ramaswamy is a fake AstroTurf conservative, and he's from India, and he cares more about Indian people and HB1s than he does Ohioans. And I'm going to be the We the People champion. Okay, that's fine if you want to play that role, if that's what you want to. But you have to bring substance along with the anger, and you have to bring answers along with I think Vivek is disgusting, and I think the word was loathsome. You got to bring more than that. That's what I wanted to hear. So that's why I let him really rant for about an hour. Very, very, very limited question and interruption time from me. I wanted him to keep going, and he did. And I wrote this for the newsletter. I could probably bring that up. I don't have to, but I wrote this as one of the 5 things to. Let me bring it up. Let me bring it up and share that part of the screen, just because I think it's going to help make the point that I'm trying to make here. All right, go on there. Boy, the Tetris board is really, really being wonky today. It's not allowing me to put the pieces where I want. Let's see if I can do that. All right. And I'll try to blow that up a little bit for you. But this is this week's newsletter. It came out yesterday morning, 6 a.m., as it always does. And we've got 5 things to know. Anarchy is threatening to destroy the country. Self-defense is not murder. That's Minnesota, of course. Congress finally put the fraud under oath. That was huge in the Oversight Committee. With friends like these, who needs enemies? This is the interview with Max Miller, in which we talked about the 17 Republicans, including him, who voted with Hakeem Jeffries on extending the subsidies, and Tampon Tim's announcement that he's not going to seek re-election. Good. The audio video of the week is what we're talking about right now with Casey Putsch. And then this is what I wrote for the newsletter yesterday, and I'll read it directly to you rather than trying to recreate the commentary now. This was my impression when I interviewed Casey for that period of time, for the full hour on Friday. Don't fall for performative art. Unquestionably, there are people who are angry at the Ohio Republican Party for not doing enough with their supermajorities and their sweeping statewide office powers. There are also people who are very angry. And then there's Casey Putsch, the very late entry into the Ohio GOP gubernatorial race, who appeared on Friday's episode, spent a full hour yelling and screaming about how evil Vivek Ramaswamy is and how corrupt the ORP is for endorsing him. while he's certainly within his rights to play the I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore role, the view from the other side of the conversation, my side, was a little bit different. Look at that typo there, littler. I hate that. When I type so many of these things late at night, because I want to make sure that I'm really on the top of the news cycle, I try to do some of these during the latter part of the week, but ultimately I end up writing most of it to make sure everything is current on late night, Saturday night, and sometimes it gets sleepy. And boy, look at the typo right there. Because this came out at 6 a.m. and I just finished typing it at around 1 a.m. So sorry. Anyway, to me, it didn't look like genuine anger at 8 o'clock in the morning. It looked like performative art. Okay? That's my view of this. Casey Putsch spent the entire interview not answering questions directly about things like Ohio's budget, yada, 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 campaign finance, but telling Republicans how bad they are for endorsing a man as loathsome, he used that word, as Ramaswamy. That is until he declared there was no difference between Republicans and Democrats. See, and this is huge for me. This is why I'm spending this time recapping the interview from Friday, because I want you to really, really understand what you heard. Sometimes you have to go back and play it a second time. But that's big, and I'll come back to it because I'm going to finish what I wrote on the newsletter. He said there's no difference between Republicans and Democrats. This right and left BS is all just BS, was the direct quote, which was his precursor to his invitation to Ohio Democrats to pull GOP primary ballots and choose the Republican candidate for them in May, which would undoubtedly benefit no one more than Amy Acton. The final straw for many of the viewers who responded to this was his declaration that if he did not win the primary, he would sit out the general election rather than vote for Vivek, and that all Ohio Republicans should do the same. This would, of course, hand the keys to the state to Dr. Lockdown, who already spent 2 years destroying the state under Mike DeWine's approving eye. And then watch the interview for yourself and give me your thoughts and so forth. Do you think he actually wants to be governor, or do you think he's just in a performative role trying to divide Ohio's Republican voters, weakening the Republican position in November and handing the state to the Democrats? So that was number one, and you can, if you're a subscriber, you can see the rest of what the top five things to do this week were. But I want to come back now to the actual interview that I did with Casey Putsch, because I'm going to play just a small portion of this for you, the part that I found to be the most telling. And the reason I'm giving you this aftermath report on Friday's interview, I would have done all of this after the actual interview, but it took us right up to the end of the live stream. And I didn't feel like what I was hearing was genuine and real. I felt like it was performance. And what made me feel like that even more was toward the end of the interview, the back half of the interview, when he said that stuff about, letting Democrats come over. And, there's no difference between us anyway. I find a great deal of difference between us and Democrats, left-wing Democrats, not old, blue dog Democrats. My mother and father were both Democrats. It's why I was a Democrat. When I turned 18, I registered Democrat. That's what my mom and dad were. And there was no internet to guide me. There was just the news channels, and I didn't watch those because I wasn't into it. So I registered Democrat, and I voted Democrat because that's just what you do. When your parents do it, that's just a pretty common thing, I think, for a lot of people anyway. But they were in no way, shape, or form left-wing Democrats. They were not liberals in any way, shape, or form. My father probably had more conservative views, the little that he talked about politics, very little. But he had more conservative views whenever I heard him speak than any Republican ever could. But then again, we're talking about growing up in the 70s, very early 80s. I was able to hear a lot of that stuff. But today's Democrats, modern day left-wing Democrats, I find that we have very, very little in common with them. Casey thinks we have far more in common than we do that are differences. I disagreed. I didn't argue with him because, again, I was there to listen to him, not make my points. Today is the day for me making my points. So he said there's no difference between the right and the left, essentially. He said there's no difference between Republicans and Democrats, and that's why it should be just fine for Democrats to come over and vote in the primary for him. And then what else he said? Well, I'm going to let him speak for himself here. I'm going to play this back from Friday so that I can give you some honest analysis, and then I can hear from you in the chat what your honest analysis is. And moreover, I want you to get into locals and post on this as well. Don't forget, click that red join button on your screen that you see underneath me right now on the video side. Click that join button and join us on Locals, and consider being a paid VIP member so that you can get into the exclusive content that we're going to be dropping. But also where to strategize on what we do going forward. So I'm going to play this. This is only a couple of minutes of the full hour that we had with him. 56 minutes is what I had him on for, essentially. But I want to respond to this direct portion of it because I think this is the most telling, and I think it's the most, as I say, most important with respect to whether or not we win the state of Ohio or not. We have to decide for ourselves if this is a person who wants to win at all, or if this is a person who's trying to take votes away from Vivek Ramaswamy as a virtual plant, and hand the state to the Democrats. So let's listen in, or let's watch and listen here, and then we'll come back on the other side of it. Here we go.
What's going to happen is when I win the primary, the entirety of the GOP has to back me. Otherwise, they're sunk. So that's nice.
Casey,
have money, but the
Casey,
GOP
what if
is
it
going to
doesn't?
be with me, including what I have, and we're going to win. Period.
You're right. If you win the primary, the entire GOP is going to have to back you 100%. Absolutely needs to be.
So
What I'm asking, what I want to ask you is, if things don't go your way, okay,
yeah.
Will the reverse be true? If Vivek wins the
mean?
primary, what I mean is, if Vivek wins the
Will I
primary,
support him?
will you back him?
Absolutely not. I mean, well, I'm a Republican. I'm an American. I'm not going to do that. But I'm not going on the campaign trail supporting disgusting sellouts that have done nothing else. It's vulgar. Like, Vivek's entire running is just spitting in all of our faces, telling us it's rain, buying out the entirety of the Republican Party. Are you kidding me? Do you know how much my life is at stake right now? My family? They can kill me, set me up, destroy me through lawfare, 11 Ways to Sunday, buy out everybody I've ever known. So this is insanely dangerous, and I'm going to support that disgusting establishment? No, respectfully, I will remain a conservative and a Republican, and I am supportive of our President of the United States and our future in the world, and I will still work to make Ohio better, but I'm going to sit it out. I'm going to sit it out, and honestly, everybody else in Ohio should too.
All right. That didn't just speak to me. That screamed at me more than he was. That screamed at me. Holy shit. This guy doesn't want to win the governor's race. This guy wants to stop Vivek Ramaswamy from winning the governor's race. He said, if I don't get the nomination, I'm not voting for him. I'll sit it out, and everybody else should too. His words. If Ohio Republicans don't have strong turnout because people follow Casey's advice, the everyman angry man, follow his advice and sit it out because they don't like Amy Acton, but they don't like Vivek either. If Ohio Republicans don't turn out, and the Democrats, of course, obviously will, because they're going to be there in droves for the midterms to try to take over Congress. If the Democrat turnout beats the Republican turnout, and even if Republicans turn out for the congressional races but don't vote in the governor's race following Casey's advice, we lose. And Ohio goes blue. And if Ohio goes blue, Ohio dies. All right? In the same way that the Republic dies if it goes back to being Democrat controlled. And he basically just said, if I win, the whole Ohio race, not basically, he said it directly, and he's right. He said, if I win, the whole Ohio Republican Party is going to have to support me and rally around me. And he's right, because that's what we do for our nominee. But then when I asked him, will it be the same if it's reversed? If you don't win and Vivek does, will you rally for him? No, I'm staying home, and everybody else should too. Willing to sacrifice the state to Dr. Lockdown? Willing to sacrifice medical freedom? Willing to sacrifice economic priorities and development? Vivek has outlined some extraordinary things about economic development in the state and the return to core manufacturing. Amy Acton? I mean, what are you talking about? No, you'll sit it out. That screamed at me. That was red flaggy, and they were waving left and right, those red flags. But it didn't stop there. Here's the rest of what I want you to hear.
And the reason I'm here is because Vivek is a disgusting choice that bought his way in, and Amy Acton is a revolting choice. She quit as the health director, resigned because there was too much pressure. She locked down the state and destroyed people's businesses and lives. On the left, on the right, she can't speak up for anything. We're going to put her in charge of the entire economy of Ohio. We're going to put a woman who quit as health director in charge of a fleet of F-16s. I don't think so.
But yet you are literally calling for that. You're explaining how evil and bad Amy Acton is, and yet you're saying, I will not support her opponent to stop her from becoming governor. I will not support her unless that opponent is me. If it's not me, well, I'm not voting, and I don't think anybody else should either. And if Casey Putsch wins and earns, thousands of followers or tens of thousands of followers in this primary over the next 4 months, or millions even, but doesn't win the primary, and they all say, yeah, we're with Casey, we're not voting for Vivek. The person he's just screaming about, Amy Acton, will be the governor. The state will be blue. How do you justify that? I don't understand that. I don't understand how anybody right now who saw this and is in the chat room, not the chat room, the Facebook comment sections and so forth, because I isolated this interview from Friday's broadcast. I dropped it yesterday. Just the 56-minute interview. Watch the whole thing. I'm only giving you a few minutes of it here, but watch the whole thing if you didn't see it already. But I would like anybody who is still screaming that Casey Putsch for governor, I would like your answer to this question. How can you support a person who says, if I don't win, we should all just not vote for Vivek and let Amy Acton take over, after he just described how evil and bad and dangerous Amy Acton is for the state of Ohio? Justify that for me if you're a supporter of Casey Putsch right now. But we're not done.
Here to fight against both of it. But if this disgusting, vulgar establishment that's doing nothing for our future destroys me or pushes Vivek in there like they're already astroturfing it, I'm sorry, but the game's already over. And all of us normies are going to have to go home, hunker down, and try to figure out how to hold on to the scraps we already have. We can barely afford homes. We barely have jobs. We barely know we're going to have a future. And all of our rights are being taken away by disgusting Somali immigrants are doing the massive fraud schemes to the tune of multi-billions of dollars, destroying our future. And I'm mad right now, and I should be, and everybody else should be mad.
And you think Amy Acton, and you think Amy Acton is going to crack down on Somali fraud? You think that's going to stop the fraud? The fraud that is going on across this country is almost overwhelmingly, not even almost, it is overwhelmingly in blue states, led by blue governors with blue state office holders who look the other way, if they're not already participating in the graft and accepting some of the money. It's all that way. The worst of the worst are the blue states. They're the ones, and you're talking about how, what are we going to do? Somali, fraud. I mean, you think Amy Acton's going to crack down on that? I mean, honestly. I'm trying to follow his train of thought here and his logic, like I said, but Friday was not the time to argue. I wanted to listen. Now that I've listened, now I want to respond, and I want you to consider these things as well.
Because if I'm not in, they will absolutely lose to Amy Acton, and I'm coming in fighting. And yeah, I've got people in financial horsepower behind me.
Let me back that up. Let me back that up for a second here. If I don't win, they're going to lose to Amy Acton. He said this 3 minutes after saying, if I don't win, I don't want anybody to vote for Vivek. Wants everybody to sit home. That benefits Amy Acton. That benefits Amy Acton. There's no disputing that.
Of our president of the United States and our future in the world, and I will still work to make Ohio better, but I'm going to sit it out. I'm going to sit it out, and honestly, everybody else in Ohio should too.
I had to go back there and play that part again because I think that's extraordinary for you to hear. I'm going to sit it out, and everybody else should too. 3 minutes later, he's complaining that Amy Acton might be the governor unless he wins the GOP primary.
And so if you want to come and get me, because I'm not backing down. I'm going
But
to
if you,
save Ohio from this one way or another with the people.
everything you just said about Amy Acton is true. And if, and you
By the
know,
way, I'm not
we
mad at you
cannot.
in any way. I'm not mad at you.
No,
I'm
I
perfectly
understand.
happy.
That's why
But
I'm not yelling
we're all
back at you
staring
because
down a barrel right now.
yeah, no, I mean, I'm not yelling back at you because I'm not,
Thank
you
you.
know, this isn't me. But what you just said, though, is extraordinarily important. Everything you said about Amy Acton is true, which is why we cannot let her win. And the
Correct.
reality is somebody's going to win the race in November.
Correct.
If Ohioans follow your lead and sit it out, you just said you will sit it out. You won't vote for Vivek and you won't vote for Amy Acton. You'll sit it out, and you said all Ohioans should do the same. But the reality is, some Ohioans are going to vote, and
That's fine.
and somebody is going to
can.
win. Do you really want to roll the dice and
No. This isn't on me.
Amy Acton win
This
this
is
thing?
100% on the Ohio GOP and everyone who has endorsed Vivek. Every single last man, woman, there's no child, but everybody who's endorsed Vivek, this is on them. If the state goes blue, it is on you. It is on Vivek. For all of time, you did this.
So again, trying to just, process this and make some sense out of what I'm hearing here. I'm telling Ohio voters to not vote at all if I'm not the nominee for the Republicans. And Republicans are the only people who are going to listen to me because I'm running as a Republican, and I've got the anti-Vivek Republicans. He keeps saying Vivek, it's Vivek, but whatever. I've got the anti-Vivek Republicans in my corner, and if I tell them not to vote, it's going to lead to Amy Acton becoming governor. But now I'm going to scold everybody and say it's you, it's your fault if you endorse and support Vivek if Ohio goes blue. Make it make sense. It doesn't. It doesn't. If you don't vote in huge numbers as a Republican for the Republican nominee, the Democrat nominee wins. This isn't rocket science. This is political science 101. Maybe even it's not even political science 101. This is a prerequisite you had to have from high school just to be able to get into this 101 class. If you tell your party not to turn out in great numbers, the other party's going to win. That's reality. But now he's going to blame it on Vivek supporters who do go out to vote for him, that is, for turning Ohio blue. Make it make sense.
And me representing the people of Ohio, we're the ones that are going to have to deal with this. The fact of the matter is this whole left or right BS charade is BS. Let's say Vivek, doesn't matter who's in the primary. They're going to, the right versus the left, each one's going to spend $100 million on average getting through the general. $100 million just so we can hear somebody talk. That alone is insanely wasteful, vulgar, and disgusting.
Okay. This whole right versus left thing is BS, he said. There's no difference. There's no difference between the right and the left. And each side is going to spend $100 million, he said, just to listen to somebody talk. No. They're going to spend all of that money because we need somebody to lead, not to talk, but to lead, to make crucial decisions with our money, with our budget. A budget that Vivek has spoken extensively on, a budget that he has outlined that he wants to see implemented when he becomes governor. This is what he wants to prioritize. This is what he doesn't. And when I asked you about the budget, you said, I haven't read it. I've seen it, but I haven't read it. Okay, it's fine. You got time to look at it. But point being, it's not just to hear somebody talk. It's to hear somebody decide the fate of the state from an educational, from a manufacturing, from a job creation, from a wages to the taxes. All of those perspectives. It's about leading, and it's not just to hear somebody talk. And yes, there are vast differences between right and left. And the fact that we've got a guy saying there's no difference between Republicans and Democrats, right and left, conservative and liberal, but wants to be the leader of a red state, I'm sorry. I got problems with that.
How is that in the best interest of people? So respectfully, yes, I said that. I'll sit out. That's my right. I don't like it, That's not a good civic duty. But the fact of the matter is, we have all been just astroturfed this disgusting man, Vivek Ramaswamy, and who has nobody's best interest in mind. The GOP is totally sold out. They're completely out of touch, and you can see it. The Democrats certainly are no better. If they were, maybe I'd consider voting for them. But their party is radicalized garbage and has done nothing but destroy the social fabric of America and divided us for the last 4 years or more. So you can't vote for that. But the GOP is just doing it worse. So why would I be part of that? It's not on me. It's on them.
So there are a lot of people online. Okay, this is that last part again. Was very performative, as far as I'm concerned. He actually pondered for a second as to whether or not he would vote for the Democrats before saying, no, they're terrible, they're horrible, they're disgusting, destroying the fabric of America, so forth. But no, I wouldn't vote for the other side either. Again, underscoring his point. My followers, my supporters, if we don't win in May, we don't vote at all. And if Republicans who are for Casey don't vote at all, Amy Acton wins. This is not up for debate. This is not in dispute. This is simple reality. But again, let's go back to is there a difference between Democrats and Republicans? Casey said this, suggesting that you have or you plan to ask Democrats, because of our open primary system in the state, to cross over in the primary and vote for you to get Vivek out of there. Is that true? Do you want Democrats to come over and vote for you in the Republican primary since they don't have a race? They don't have somebody to oppose Amy Acton?
Well, and to be honest, I'm learning Ohio has a lot of funny laws with regard to voting and parties and everything you're doing here. So here's the deal. The whole construct of left or right, yeah, it exists, but it's also a way to keep everybody divided and fighting. And the thing that I have learned is all the people of the United States have a heck of a lot more in common than they have apart. I don't mean that as a BS political platitude. I mean it honestly.
Okay. I wish he meant it as a political platitude because it's bullshit. Look outside right now at the cities, the blue cities. Look at Minneapolis, St. Paul. Look at Portland. Look at Seattle. Hell, look at Cleveland over the weekend. Look at the blue cities and the blue states where they have decided on anarchy because an ICE agent didn't want to be run over by an SUV that was floored directly at him as he stood 2 feet in front of it. And he shot to stop that vehicle and defended his own life because he didn't want to die on the job. The left is out there destroying the country, trying to turn everybody against all law enforcement, just like they did 5 years ago after George Floyd overdosed. Okay? You're going to tell me that there isn't a stark difference in this country? These people believe men can have babies. That's what the left believes. Casey, you said we have way more in common than we do apart. No, we don't. 30 years ago, maybe we did. Not now. They believe men can have babies and that there's no difference between male and female bodies. They should be able to compete in athletics against one another. The left wants tampons in little boys' rooms, in boys' junior high school boys' restrooms. That's what Tim Walz actually did. The left believes that collectivism and socialism is a superior economic model and social structure to capitalism and individualism. How do we know? They're electing them. Socialists. The left believes that Islam is just another religion and that they should not be singled out for persecution or for condemnation. The right knows that they are here not as a religion, but as an ideology to take over the world. Don't listen to me, ask them. The global caliphate, one world government under Sharia law, is the goal. The left supports that. The left voted for that. The left is angry that Donald Trump declared the Muslim Brotherhood to be a foreign terrorist organization. Don't tell me that there's no difference between them and us. That's the reason we're fighting them tooth and nail to save the republic. You want to be the governor of one of our most important states, and you're saying there's no difference between Republicans and Democrats? So yeah, Democrats, come on over and vote for me. I find it to be disconcerting. Disconcerting, I'll say that.
So I think what's going to happen is, as I'm running, when they go, "Oh my gosh, this is a real guy. Maybe he's a little unpolished. You know, sometimes he talks like a mechanic, but he actually cares because he's been helping people. This is a real guy." I'm telling you right now, there's going to be a lot of people that are left and independent that, if they legally have the ability to vote for me, wherever that is, they're going to do it, because they can look around and go, "Hey, the Democrats suck in their choice. Oh my gosh, the Republicans are revolting. And here's an actual Ohioan who cares."
So,
That's
is
pretty
that a
good.
yes? Is that a yes? You want Democrats to come
All I
over and
can
vote
tell-
in the Republican primary?
All I can tell you is, if it is legal and appropriate for people, just people, to vote for me, I would encourage them to do so, because I've got the best interest of all of us in mind. So yeah, if they can legally do that, I don't even have a choice. They're just going to end up doing it.
All right. Those are the money lines that I wanted to share with you, and I wanted to react to. Clearly, I could not have reacted to all of these things in real time on Friday when Casey was on with me, because he was, I mean, even in the very, very little I tried to talk to ask the next question, I was being interrupted. If I actually tried to push back against him as he was screaming and yelling about all these things, it would have been completely non-productive. So that's the reason I want to respond to it now. I am not convinced after that full hour that I spent with Casey Push that he wants to be the governor. I am convinced that he will do everything he can to sink Vivek Ramaswamy. And I don't know what the agenda is there. I don't know why he has such a hatred for him and such a, I mean, it called him revolting, called him loathsome, called him disgusting, called the establishment that led to him getting the GOP nomination disgusting, and all the rest. I don't know if there's a personal thing there. I don't know what the motive is. I won't speculate. I just know that it is impossible to justify saying, let's let the Democrats win just to stop Vivek Ramaswamy. And what I got from Casey in that full hour was somebody who, is trying to sell himself as the everyman, the angry man. I don't need to know policy. I don't need to know about the budget. I don't need to know about education. I don't need to know about all of these things that affect Ohioans, because I don't plan to win it anyway. Why do I need to study that stuff when my whole goal here is to be pissed off, get a whole lot of other pissed off people behind me so that they say, yeah, we're with you, Casey. And then when I lose, they'll stop. They'll back out. They'll opt out of voting altogether. They won't vote for Vivek, and the Democrats will vote solidly for Amy Acton. And therein is the accomplishment of the goal. That's the only thing that I can make of this. I mean, I don't like to think the worst of anybody, but nothing else makes sense. Nothing else, particularly when you hear somebody say, there's no difference between us. I find there are more in common between the right and the left than there are differences. When he said this whole right, he said this BS charade of right versus left is BS. I'm trying to quote him exactly. There is a very distinct difference between right and left. The fact that we can coexist with these people right now without a civil war having started is a miracle. And it's a miracle that I don't think is going to last very long. You don't think there's a difference? We're on the verge of civil war. We're on the verge of a civil war. They're on the streets attacking cops, attacking ICE agents, obstructing official law enforcement activities. Agents and cops that are just doing their jobs, enforcing the law. You do remember the law, do you not, Democrats? You do remember that laws are passed by Congress, by legislators, and the law says you can't come into the United States illegally. And if you do, we can grab you up and deport you. That's the law. Now we have law enforcement, whose job is to go out there and do exactly what the law says. And these people want to attack them, harm them, make put their lives in danger. And Republicans, the right, that he said is no different than the left, is trying to say, back up our law enforcement agents. This is exactly what we voted for. What was the number one issue that Republicans, or rather that people voted for in November of 2024? There were two: the economy and immigration. And I think immigration was probably number one because Joe Biden surged 12 to 20 million illegals into this country. And it puts us all in danger. That's the truth. So we voted and said, seal the border, sir. He did. Get rid of the illegals, sir, because that was the centerpiece of his campaign. Get rid of them. And Democrats are screaming, no, let them stay, let them stay. You're telling me there's no difference between us? Oh, let's let those good Democrats to come over to vote for me if that's what they want. You know what? Here's the other thing I think Casey should have to answer and should address. Do you think if Ohio Democrats cross over in the primary to vote for you, do you think they're going to vote for you in the general against Amy Acton? You know damn well they won't. If you somehow pulled a rabbit out of a hat and won the primary, there's not a snowball's chance in hell. They're here. If they vote for you, Casey, if they vote for you, it's because they know you're an easy mark. You're an easier takedown in November of 26, in 11 months or 10 months. You're an easier takedown than Vivek Ramaswamy. You're underfunded. You're a no name. You got no ideas. You don't know what's in the budget, and you're out here just playing the "I'm mad" routine. That's an easy win for them, especially if you are turning conservatives off to the entire thing by saying don't vote at all if I'm not the guy. If you're not the guy, you're saying don't vote at all. That gives Amy Acton the win. And you're saying if I do win, I am the guy. It also gives Amy Acton a win because you got nothing. Don't get me wrong. I don't disapprove of the angry man routine. I get angry on the radio. I get angry on this live stream all the time. And you're allowed to rant, rave, and pound your fist. I get it. I do it. But when it comes time to have, okay, let's have a sit down and a substantive discussion about what it would take to run one of the largest states in the country. It can't just be anger. And I hate Vivek. I hate that loathsome establishment that endorsed him. It can't be that. You got to have answers. And so far there's no answers. So my takeaway is I'm not going to call him an outright plant, but I don't think he has a strategy to win. I don't think he has the resources to win, which is why every time I asked him about it, he turned around and screamed about how Vivek got his resources. I don't think he has a strategy to win. I don't know if he necessarily has a desire to win. I think what he has a desire to do is stop Vivek Ramaswamy from winning, even if that means letting the state go blue. So there you have it. That's the breakdown from Friday and the interview that we did with Casey Putsch for the entirety of the 8 o'clock hour. I needed to get some of that analysis up there. And then I want to know what you think about it too. Do me a favor, post about it, comment about it on the locals page. That's our new war room. That's our new hub for strategy. This is where we hammer things out. We can agree, we can disagree, we can talk about strategies, all these things. It's on the locals community. And I would love for you to be there. If you are watching right now live, well, even if you're watching this on tape delay later on in the day or the week or whenever, click the join button, the red join button you see. Can I share? I think I did this earlier. I think I can probably still share it. Yeah. Let me share this with you super quick, just so we can remind everybody what the goal is here and what we need to accomplish here. There it is right there as we bring this up, and we'll try to full screen that bad boy. Yeah. See that red button right there? Right underneath the title of today's show, which is Will Leftist Anarchy Lead to Civil War? Click that join button. That'll take you to the locals community. And when you go to the locals community, then you obviously are able to be a part of, like I said, the VIP experience. We're going to have unique content there. There are going to be interviews there that do not air during the regular Rumble program. There's going to be town hall meetings, strategy sessions, post-show debriefs, and a whole lot more. So please be a part of that. This is just newly being born today, the locals community. So click that join button if you can. And be a part of the solution. All right. As you know, I've got I've got different person, different race altogether. Let's get away from the governor's race for a moment and talk about the Secretary of State's race. I've got Marcel Sturbich waiting in the wings. He's going to be in the green room shortly at the bottom of this hour. He's going to join us to talk about two massive developments I mentioned an hour ago. Number one, he got the endorsement over Robert Sprague from the 8th largest GOP or 8th largest county in the country. Or let me do that again. The 8th largest county in the state of Ohio, the GOP in Butler County endorsed Marcel Sturbich for Secretary of State. We're going to talk about that and congratulate him and talk about the 4 months in front of him to sprint and again be a political outsider and come in and try to win this thing over an elected statewide office holder like Robert Sprague. So it'll be a very interesting conversation from that standpoint. But the other part of it we're going to talk to Marcel about is he's got his fingers all over the pulse of the fraud, the widespread systemic fraud that is ripping off Ohio and federal taxpayers in worse ways than even Minnesota, which was uncovered by the independent reporting of Nick Shirley. So he's got some strong thoughts on that. Does Marcel Sturbich, and we're going to talk to him in about 25 minutes. We're going to take a short time out here for the top of the hour. Smoke him if you got him. All right, I hate that phrase because I hate smoking. Don't smoke him if you got him. But take this short time out here and just about 2-3 minutes here, and we'll come right back. We'll talk a little bit more about that chaos, that anarchy that we were discussing, and we'll take it up to Marcel Sturbich at the bottom of the hour. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Sit tight. We will be right back. All right, that's enough of the timeout. Let's get back to action. We have a lot of work still to do. We're going to check out the chat room here in a moment if you are on the Rumble chat. And if you're not on the Rumble chat, you know what? I keep forgetting to do this. I keep forgetting to cut the feed to Facebook and YouTube. We're live streaming the show to all three platforms, Facebook, YouTube, and then most importantly, Rumble. And I intend to do that just for the first 30 minutes or so, and then cut the feed to the others so people all have to come to Rumble so we can join together in conversation in the chat, but also in locals now, which is the other part of this whole thing. So if you are just tuning in to today's live stream, make sure you click the join button. In addition to all of the other buttons that I tell you to push, you got to push the follow button. You got to push the thumbs up like button. You got to hit the subscribe button. Now you got to hit the join button for the locals community so that you can be an insider. And that's what you need to be, a strictly speaking insider in the locals community to get the exclusive content that is coming. So I hope you are supportive of that and will be a part of that. But for now, let me visit the chat and see what's going on, because I have been very, very busy watching and listening to the interview from Friday with Casey Putsch and giving you some updated responses to that. Let me see what some folks have been saying in the chat. And this is a little bit willy-nilly, meaning I'm bebopping around here because the chat's been going now for obviously an hour plus, and I have not caught up. So let me go back a little bit. If I don't read yours live here, don't think in any way that I'm neglecting you. It's just that I'm going to go back here and kind of let my eyes wander and see what I see with respect to the conversation at hand. Let's see. Liberty Bell. Good morning, everyone. I enjoy your show. Hope your followers increase. You are a great interviewer. Thank you, Liberty Bell. You can make that happen. That's what the grassroots is. Most people don't know I'm here. This is a very, very crowded space talking about conservative podcasting and live streaming. There are a ton of people. We have a niche that I think, and we have something that is a little bit special to offer, but not a lot of people know that we're here yet. That's where the grassroots comes in. That's why I ask you guys every single day to take the link of each day's show and send it to somebody and say, follow this account, follow this channel, click like, and do all the other things that I just described. It takes grassroots organizing in order for it to grow. And it will. Let's see. Sarah, he seems so obvious to me. It's like he took all of our issues and made a talking sheet. I think Sarah is talking about Casey Putsch. Big Jake says, Casey Putsch is one obnoxious guy. He defines the word toxic, which I don't like, but it fits him. Let's see. What else do I have here? Donna says, in other words, no, my way or the highway. That had to be in response to the will you vote for Vivek in the general election if you don't win? And he said no. Casey John says, should he be successful recruiting Dems to cross, the new governor will be Acton. Then God help us. Exactly. That's the point. That's what I mean when I say I'm not calling him a plant, but it's going to have the same practical effect as if he were a plant. Charlie says, yeah, hand it to Amy Acton because I'm a conservative. Right, exactly. That's sarcasm. Hand the state to Amy Acton because I'm a conservative and I don't like Vivek. Just let Amy Acton take it is what it would amount to. That is very, very true. SRL. This guy sounds like he's acting. That's what I said. That's why I called it performative art. That was my takeaway as I was listening to it, because there was no reason for him to be that angry and that, desk poundy, if you will, or whatever you want to call it at that hour of the day when we're just talking about, hey, introduce yourself to the people of Ohio. That's all I did. Introduce yourself to people who are active and who, may or may not be 100% sold on Vivek. They're willing to listen to see what somebody else has. Let's talk about it. But no substance, no, answers of consequence, but just a whole lot of anger and rage bait that I don't think is helpful. Let's see. Marty says, if he can't control himself in an interview, he isn't fit to be a governor. He is a wackadoodle. I'm not going to call names, but Marty, I appreciate the input. I wouldn't call him a name anyway. Like I said, the only name I would call him, if I was convinced that it was true, it would be a plant. And I'm not convinced. I'm leaning that way because it doesn't smell like he wants to be governor. It smells like I am here to take Vivek Ramaswamy down, period. If I win in the primary, Vivek is gone, and then whatever happens, happens. I have no name. I have no ground game. I have no political support. I have no money for an extended, year-long general election fight, which means Amy Acton's going to win. And, if I don't win the primary and Vivek is the nominee, well, then I just told everybody to stay home. Don't vote for the governor's race. Don't vote for Vivek or Amy Acton, which means the Democrats get to decide who wins, and they vote for Amy Acton. It smells like he doesn't want to be governor. He just wants to stop Vivek Ramaswamy from being governor. Sharon, hopefully car people can, some of this is a little bit can put common sense ahead of loving their car, guys. Some people get confused about where their priorities should be. Sharon, not wrong. Charlie, again, Acton will be the Joe Biden of Ohio. She won't be running anything. She would be just a face, while a bunch of Marxist rats will be the ones actually making decisions. Kirsten, good morning. If this is how Casey would act as governor, it would be painful to listen to him no matter what political party you affiliate with. Not wrong at all. Jan, thank you for the recap. Someone had recommended Casey to me after this interview and watching his YouTube show about data centers. He's not ready to be governor. Sharon, can you imagine how he would speak to someone he disagreed with if he were governor? If this interview is an example of how he talks to people he disagrees with, wow, so much for diplomacy. Jim, Parma Heights, says this guy's hatred of Vivek is personal. He's not running for governor. He's just running to destroy Vivek. Again, I ask, who is bankrolling this guy? Donna just said he's a rhino. Liberty Bell says Columbus is dark blue. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That's a reality. Couple more here. Casey John, if I'm going to vote for a mechanic, I'm voting for Charlie, the politically incorrect mechanic. Beautiful. Well done. Well, oh, you know what? I haven't dropped one of these in a while, and I think he just earned it. Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Can you dig it?
Nicely done, Casey John. Kirsten, I just found Casey Putsch for Ohio on the Ohio Campaign Finance Reporting webpage, and there has only been a single item filed. A designation of treasurer was filed on December 3rd. Today is Rush Limbaugh's birthday. Happy heavenly birthday, El Rushbaugh. I second that. You know, it's interesting that you brought that up. And I'll come back to the chat in a bit, but I want to get a few other things done here before Marcel comes in at 8:30. And you're going to want to hear from Marcel Sturbich if you have not for a while. When I was doing the Medina County Friends and Neighbors on Saturday, one of the Q&A at the end, one of the questioners asked me if there isn't some hypocrisy for complaining about Casey Putsch telling Democrats to come over and vote for the Republican nominee, to choose the Republicans nominee for them. And is it hypocritical to say that you don't want somebody like a Democrat to succeed? Because Rush Limbaugh once did that. He orchestrated, quote, Operation Chaos, in which he told Republicans, and I think it was in the McCain race in 2008, in which he told Republicans, McCain is terrible, he can't win, so we need to stop this Obama character. So go vote in the I think it was in 2008 in the Democrat primary, and stop this Obama guy. He knew how dangerous he was, And then when Obama won, he said out loud, "I want him to fail." And so the questioner asked me, isn't it hypocritical for us to say we want a Democrat to fail if they're in charge of the country? We wanted Joe Biden to fail or whatever. And complain because, the Democrats say they want Trump to fail. How can we say that's bad given what they did? And I want to just address that super quick, as I did to the group in Medina on Saturday. There are two different agendas. Trump's agenda is constitutional principles and law. Trump's agenda is secure borders. Trump's agenda is lower crime. Trump's agenda is lower inflation. Trump's agenda is lower taxes. Trump's agenda is rugged individualism. Trump's agenda is exactly what the founding fathers wrote the blueprints to this country to be. Saying you want that to fail is saying you want America to fail. Barack Obama, on the other hand, was about fundamentally transforming America. His words. Fundamental transformation means drastic change. I want to transform America from something that it is into something that I want it to be. Transform it from capitalism to socialism, which is what the Democrat agenda still is to this very day. but transform America from capitalism to socialism, transform America from being a sovereign state to being a part of a globalist entity, transform America from being a low-tax country to a high-tax country that discourages incentive and achievement and advancement. Because who wants to work harder to build their own company and then have more of their money taken away from them because of it? Obama's agenda was to fundamentally tear apart race relations in this country, which were pretty damn solid when he came in 2008. Nothing is perfect. There are going to be racists everywhere, black racists, white racists, Hispanic. I mean, you're going to get all kinds of that stuff. But generally speaking, there are surveys on this. What were race relations like prior to Barack Obama in? What the surveys at the time showed. Some 70% of the people said, yeah, race relations are pretty good in this country. Barack Obama comes in, and by the time he gets into a second term, what do you think of race relations in America now? Down to 30% of the people said they're good. It's because Barack Obama came in and started a race war. My point being, if you say you want Barack Obama, as Rush Limbaugh did, you want Barack Obama to fail, you want him to fail at destroying America. When you say you want Donald Trump to fail, you're saying you want Donald Trump to fail at keeping America, keeping it. Not just, quote, making it great again. If you don't like the hats, fine. You don't like the hats. But if you say you want Trump to fail, you want America to fail, because what Trump is doing from an economic perspective, from a foreign policy perspective, to a national security perspective, to a tax and economy perspective, and all of the, personal finance and so forth, all of the things that he did on the first term that he would have continued to do in a second term if the pandemic hadn't happened, and we weren't allowed to have, unrestricted mail-in voting, unmonitored drop boxes, and all the other rest of the fraud that was done. But the point being, trying to say I want Trump to fail is like saying I want America to fail. Trying to say I want Obama to fail is saying I want America to survive. Very, very big difference there. All right. So I'm going to go back to this for a moment, if I can, because I started the show this way, and I even entitled the show today about anarchy. Let me pop this up here real quick. This is, I want to share this screen with you. This is the first item in this week's Strictly Speaking This Week newsletter. Hopefully you're subscribed to it. If you're not, please do so. Very simple. Just, go to, you know what? I think I'm going to put the QR code and put the link to subscribe to the newsletter on the Locals page too. Subscribe to Locals, which is simple click of the join button, and I'll make sure there's an easy tab for you to find subscribe to the newsletter as well. But if you already got yesterday's newsletter, you saw what I wrote in the introduction, and I'm going to read it. And then item number 1, just to kind of underscore what we're watching here. This year marks our 250th birthday as a nation, and in the early going, it appears the American left wants it to be its final birthday. And yes, I see the typo. It should be ITS, no apostrophe. I get really mad at myself if I'm typing late at night, and I get a little bit weary-eyed, and I don't see my typos. My bad. The English teacher in me just punches myself in the face for that. Anyway, the left wants it to be America's final birthday. A growing segment of the left has simply abandoned the idea of law and order altogether. What we are witnessing in Minneapolis and other deep blue jurisdictions is nothing short of organized anarchy. When mobs block streets, obstruct federal law enforcement, threaten officers, then get defended by politicians and the media as victims, the rule of law is being deliberately dismantled. It's not accidental, and it's not isolated from violent street chaos to the demonization of police and federal agents, to elected Republicans inexplicably. Now I'm getting into some of the other topics of the newsletter there, but this is the type of anarchy that they are literally trying to foment. And so that's why under 5 things to know this week, and again, for newbies who do not subscribe to the newsletter, each week you get 5 things to know. And then from an activist perspective, 5 things to do. These are action items that you can be a part of. One of them, as you can see there, the 5 things to do this week. Don't fall for performative art. Trump's credit card interest story is a huge one. Pay off your balances. Remember Ashley Babbitt, because they're trying to make Renee Good into what Ashley Babbitt actually was, which is an innocent victim. Find another hotel. You know that story from last week, hopefully, if you go to Minneapolis, and help us beat the algorithms always. Anyway, number one on the 5 things to know this week was about the anarchy. Do not call them protesters. Do not even call them rioters. The violence and lawlessness that has once again taken over Minneapolis and other left-wing Democrat-dominated jurisdictions is the work of anarchists. You do know what anarchy is, right? Anarchy is a state of lawlessness or of political disorder that is brought about by the absence of governmental authority. There is no one in charge. No one is allowed to be in charge. That's their plan. That's why they're literally saying, go there and challenge the authority of the state. Challenge the authority of state police, local police, federal law enforcement agents. Go there and, I mean, they're literally, you talk about, I mean, you've got the mayor of Philadelphia literally promising that if ICE comes to their jurisdiction, they'll arrest ICE. He'll turn badge against badge. He'll turn local and state police against federal law enforcement and arrest them if they come in there trying to do their deportation sweeps. That's anarchy. That means there's no one in charge. Everyone can just do their own thing. It's like The Purge, if you watch that movie or that movie series. I only saw one of them. That kind of sucked, actually. But it's anarchy without leadership, without a rudder. Anarchy reigns. And that's when people die. And that's when social order breaks down. And that's when the Democrats, what do they play? What game do they play here? I think you already know this, but I'm gonna just give you the brief overview of it. Let me share the screen or take some of the screen back real quick. What does it mean when you have complete disruption of social order and elimination of political and law enforcement authorities? When you're telling people that the leader of the country is an actual Nazi, is Hitler 2.0, don't listen to him. When you're telling people that the cabinet, these are no different than the Third Reich. When you're telling the people that federal law enforcement is no different than the secret police, the Gestapo. You're telling people not to listen to those authorities. Don't trust them. Don't follow their orders. Create chaos. Create lawlessness. Create disruption and disorder. And then the game is they sell themselves as the answer to the disruption and the chaos. And boy, look at how things fell to shit when Trump was president. Look at all of the social disorder. Look at all of the people who were harmed, all of the businesses that were destroyed. Look at the people who got shot, confronting law enforcement agents and trying to run them over, disrupting an attempt by law enforcement, by the way, to get child rapists off the streets. Yeah, in case you didn't know. They're in Minnesota sweeping up hundreds of very dangerous illegal alien criminals whose criminal activities go far beyond just coming to the country illegally. They're dangerous people. But the disruption of all of that, getting in the way of all of that, and the danger that it causes all happened under Trump. You know what the solution is, people? It's vote Democrat. If you vote Democrat, there won't be so much disruption. There won't be all of these violent protests. There won't be anarchy if you vote for Democrats. And you know what? The shit of it is, they're not wrong because we don't do that. We don't do that. We don't do no kings rallies, and we don't do, public smashing and burning and F, Democrats or F whatever. And I'm thinking of the signs they're holding up, and all these protests, F ICE and so on and so forth. We don't do it. We don't believe in chaos. We don't believe in anarchy. We believe in law and order. And if laws are handed down, we follow them. If police officers give orders, we follow them. If they tell us keep your protest signs on the corners and off of the street so you're not blocking traffic, we follow that. Democrats block the traffic. They literally block and box in the vehicles of the law enforcement officers. We don't do what they do. This goes back to what I was talking about with Casey Putsch. He said there's no difference between the right and the left. There damn sure is. We are law-abiding. They are not. They are trying to foment anarchy. That's just reality. And let me finish the article here because I do think Marcel Sturbich is in the green room. So bear with me here. The violence and lawlessness that has once again taken over Minneapolis and other left-wing Democrat-dominated jurisdictions is the work of anarchists. That's just who they are now. They are literal threats to the social order of our society, and as such, to the future of this republic. In the same place that started devastating riots in 2020 over the overdose death of a career criminal who died in police custody, aggressive anti-law enforcement demonstrations have started up again. And look at, by the way, if you're looking at your screen right now, you see the picture accompanying this commentary? That's Minnesota from Saturday night. That's Minneapolis from Saturday night. By the thousands, they came out there to block streets, to interfere with law enforcement, and to generate more and more vitriol, to generate more chaos, to generate more anarchy. Happening, turning out in animalistic packs in cities from Minneapolis to New York to Portland. Tens of thousands of these rage-filled thugs have taken to the streets. Organizers are calling for the removal of federal law enforcement entirely. These savages are not interested in First Amendment protected peaceful dissent, but rather obstruction of actual law enforcement operations and undermining the rule of law itself, conditions that political violence and chaos thrive in. The radical left's embrace of these tactics demonstrate a worldview that no longer supports respectable boundaries between lawful protest and naked lawlessness. When federal agents are prevented from doing their duties and mobs feel emboldened to challenge their actual authority, we are witnessing an escalation of disorder and violence that threatens the foundations of American society. And dare I say, because I brought this up before, dare I say, can bring us to the verge of a civil war. When people are being run down with cars and when people, when bullets start flying, don't think that reasonable, responsible people aren't going to defend themselves. And the civil war that breaks out may not be one with actual battle lines drawn between North and South, the way the original Civil War was, but there will be two distinct sides and people will have to choose. I don't want that for our country. I don't want that. I want order restored. And that's why I will continue to back ICE, local law enforcement, state law enforcement, county law enforcement, federal law enforcement against all of these anarchists who would absolutely have this country be rudderless, leaderless in order to achieve their agenda. All right, it is 8:30, and I do see his smiling face in the green room, and he should be smiling right now, speaking of Secretary of State candidate Marcel Sturbich, because Marcel had himself a week last week. Marcel, welcome back. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, thank you. It's great to be here this morning. And we are breaking the mold here for outsider candidates at the executive level office. I don't think they've seen me coming, or any of us for that matter.
I know they didn't, and I don't think anybody saw coming what we just found out about Butler County last week. Tell us the good news. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it was in one of your tweets or posts or somebody tweeting about you that Butler is the 8th largest county in the state of Ohio, and you had something really, really good happen there. Tell us.
Yeah, this weekend we had an endorsement happen. We went to the GOP party headquarters in Butler County. It is the 7th largest in the state of Ohio. And the opportunity presented itself. I've been screening with them. This is a very professional county. They take every candidate's race seriously at the executive level. And I showed up for candidate night. I showed up for screening endorsement committee. And then the best part is they put you in front of their entire county party and you make the case. And you got 5 minutes plus questions, and so does the opponent. And when that happened and my opponent stood out there, people saw that my candidacy for Secretary of State is based on substance. It's based on getting stuff done and not kicking the can down the road, not running for the next political office, not memorizing lines, not trying to offend somebody who's in my peer group. And I just hammered it home to people. I told them this is what's at stake. Our country's being defrauded. Our voter registration system's right up there alongside those business daycares where you can get by because the process is weak when it comes to verifying. And everything we're doing is after the fact. And I think I changed the mold of Republican politics because from that perspective, you had to do everything according to the way that the party at the top describes it. We're not going to accept that in this age of Trump.
Well, first of all, congratulations. I think that's a huge thing. Were you allowed, and was he allowed, and I'm talking about Robert Sprague, your opponent in this race, in the primary fight, were you allowed to see each other's presentation before the full GOP, the Butler County GOP, or was it separate? You guys weren't together?
No, we were there. We were in front. I went first, he went, and then the best part is you're sitting there with 100-some people and they start asking you questions. At one point, a lady asked him a question. What are we going to do about this elder home facility fraud? Her mom had specifically in Butler County been registered to vote without her knowledge, and somebody voted in her name, and nobody was able to get to the bottom of it. And his answer was quizzical. I mean, he looked at her and he said, we've got to be careful not to accuse the situation of fraud. And she was blown away. Like, you're trying to say I'm lying? Like, instead of asking, what was your particular situation? Yes, that is an area of weakness. I think we have to ensure chain of custody. It's clear he doesn't know the issues, and he's running for Secretary of State. And we get a system like this in Ohio because, you're expected to work your way up through local politics or the legislature and then get the head nod. And then when you get to the executive office, it doesn't matter if you're running for auditor, attorney general, secretary of state. Everybody just expects to rotate themselves into those positions. And we've been stuck in this loop in Ohio for 20, 30 years. I mean, it means that the more qualified people, just because they didn't have the connections or they didn't make the trade the favors for endorsements, they don't get a shot at it. And this is what we're going to be transforming and changing this particular cycle. And I'm leading that charge today. And Butler County is just the first of many high-level endorsements that our candidacy is going to earn before the May 5th, 2026 Republican primary.
Marcel, the reason I asked about whether or not you guys were in the same room at the same time, or if it was separated, is because I wondered, if you go first, if you're not going to just see parroted everything that you say by the other guy. And I'm really truly not trying to disparage Robert Sprague either, because Robert, according to what I've been able to follow, and I think he's a nice guy. I introduced you as my friend. If I have him on, I will call him my friend as well. I think he's a good person. I don't know if he's necessarily the right guy for this particular race. The people will decide that. But Marcel, I had not heard over the course of months anything from Robert on the issues involving secure and verifiable elections in the state of Ohio and registration and so forth at all. I heard next to nothing. I see you've been doing this for about a year. You've been all over this. Recent 2 years, but as a candidate though, for about a year, right?
Yes, that's right.
But now that I'm starting to see a little bit from Robert Sprague, it looks awfully familiar. I feel like, and I'm not going to sit here and be a junior high, call him a copycat, but I feel like he's kind of being a copycat. A lot of what you're saying, he is repeating and saying as if it were his ideas. That's the reason I asked if he was allowed to watch you and if you felt like you were watching a replay.
Yeah, that's definitely going on. In the military, we say plagiarism is a form of flattery.
There you go.
Yeah, see, but the difference between I and him is when somebody asks him a question on how he's going to do these things, there's no answer. And I have already thought through those things, and I've been working them by having issued legislation from the outside and gone through ad nauseum, second and third level, thoughts on how to do it. One of the things that he's pointing out is only citizens vote and every ballot counts. Excuse me, not every ballot should count. I think the Democrats would agree with every ballot counts. It should be every eligible vote that counts. And we're not at a point where those ballots in every instance have fully qualified eligible voter records behind them. And so this is what happens when you run a candidacy built on talking points and not one built on substance. And so we're exposing that as we go out there. And yes, all of these things could have and should have already been done in the state of Ohio with the supermajority proof Ohio legislature. That's one of the things people tell me all the time is they say, Marcel, why haven't we had upfront proof of citizenship verification? And I say, that's a good question. We signed our constitutional ballot for that 77% years ago. And we could have created a process. We have the Bureau of Motor Vehicles with access to citizenship information. So it really just comes down to the fact of there's a lack of political will, and there's people who are concerned that they want to get on record for these things and potentially have that held against them. And that's not what the case is with my campaign. I could just go right at the issues.
Well, that's great to know, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to ask the question, Marcel. And I've seen that in interacting with you over the course of the last. Let me fix the screen again real quick. Or over the course of the last couple of years, even before you became a candidate. So I think that's really good that people know that you are literally kind of setting your own course here, and you are not following somebody else's playbook like your opponent seems to be, which is yours, and trying to kind of coattail in to saying, hey, we have the same ideas. I am the established, statewide office holder. You can trust me because I've done a good job here, there, and other places. And I think that's a little bit of a disingenuous way to run a campaign. That's just my opinion. But Marcel, so in addition to getting your Butler County endorsement, congratulations for that.
Thank you.
You've been very, very busy talking about the ongoing fraud. And it feels like every single stone that is overturned, there is more corruption underneath it in the state of Ohio. Nick Shirley exposed the graft with the Somali community, with the daycare centers and the home health agencies and the transportation agencies and the Medicaid fraud and all the other stuff that's going on in Minnesota. And that shocked the nation. It got Congress to act finally, for crying out loud. I mean, they weren't doing anything until just last week. They had the oversight committee hearing because of what they found out in Minnesota. But because it happened up there, people started looking at the next largest Somali community in the country, which is in Columbus, Ohio. And they started looking to see if it's happening here too. And holy goodness, every stone, like I said, that they've unturned finds more and more and more and more. And Marcel, I haven't heard word one. And this just shows this is not about partisanship, because our state office holders are all Republicans. And I'm going to lump them in with the Democrats in Minnesota and say they haven't done a thing about this, to my knowledge, at this point. I did hear an interview with Keith Faber, the state auditor, talking about this. He was on with Pastor Chris Long and the Ohio Christian Alliance, and there are some individuals that have been held to account for certain things, but the scale of this we're just now scratching the surface of. And you, while campaigning for Secretary of State and trying to win a primary election and to talk about how to make sure our elections are secure, you're diving into this fraud as if you're already an office holder, and you've got a lot to say here. So let me give you a broad latitude here to tell us what you've uncovered and what you think.
Yeah, what Nick Shirley did is a great service to this country, and it's been happening under our nose, just like voter registration fraud. And there's every reason for me to jump into it, because I'm the only candidate in this race that actually has experience working at the national level in something called the Joint Interagency Task Force, which is something we're going to need to stand up here in Ohio. And I'm pretty sure we'll hear this idea come out, not just from me here now that I'm breaking ground again, but that's okay. I worked for about 6 months on an interagency task force in the National Capital Region against trans-regional terrorism and counter-threat finance. Oddly enough, money that goes through Somali Hawala networks were one of the areas that we were looking for to address and interdict. This is what's needed in Ohio. You see, we have all of these cabinet level agencies. The Attorney General, he has the Medicare Fraud Control Unit. I understand he has about 160 people in that entity that can get at this problem. The Secretary of State has the Public Integrity Division, which was just given broad authority, more resources to go after suspect voter issues. And really, broadly speaking, any type of fraud can be expanded into that. And then, of course, you have the auditor. And the auditor's position when all of this broke out was, well, I'm not responsible for any of these specific agencies' authorities to investigate the fraud, but if they inform me, then I can take that on. So what we have here is basically classic deflection to every other agency out there. And one more agency, by the way, the Department of Youth and Children, which is a cabinet level agency under Governor DeWine. And this is the entity that is out there in the front and doing more of the adjudication of, review, and inspection in the sense of these daycare, let's say daycare, but we're going to find out it's going to be a lot of home health too now. But in essence, all of these agencies combined have specific and limited powers under the government of Ohio to take this issue on. And if they try to do it individually, they're going to fail, right? Because they cannot understand the spectrum of the threat, which is the way I look at it, the risk and the threat across the entirety. And so what is needed is, and first of all, the Secretary of State handles all business entity formation in the state of Ohio. That means it's the Secretary of State that approves the registration of that business, that daycare, in the first place, which means they've all got to start at the Secretary of State's office. And that's where I could get to work. That's my part of the equation. So what I would call for is a governor that states that we will set up an interagency task force, and it will be comprised of key investigative entities within each of these formations, executive branch, across the board, and that we immediately, within the authorities that these agencies have, start the process of investigating suspect activity and pull it off to the side those instances where we think there's suspect activity, whether that be multiple LLCs registering at a given location, whether that be name changes that are occurring on a frequent and recurring basis. And the bottom line is we need a start point, Bob, for when citizens like Nick Shirley or Mehmet Cook or Jack Windsor or others who go out there and put a camera and eyeballs on the situation seem to indicate that there's something going on. We need an actionable agency to go out there and follow suit. And by the way, the legislature needs to come across the line and say we can have unannounced visits, because that's part of the reason these folks are able to get away with it. They have a little QR code barcode reader. Does that sound familiar to voting? And then they check in on that and then they leave. And it looks like they're there for the day and they're out. You could totally trick that system. And, you know, and the idea here is everybody needs to crash on this problem, and the Secretary of State needs to lead. But at the very top, the governor needs to admit this is an issue and not gaslight us and tell us that at the end of the day, we have sufficient, robust anti-fraud measures, because we don't.
Well, it sounds like the same thing with the election system. Well, we've got the gold standard here, so we're fine. We don't have to worry about all of these other things. So I completely agree. And I did not know, and that's why I'm so glad to have you on to talk about this, that the Secretary of State, oversaw that about, applications and registrations for businesses and so forth. So you can look into the legality or the operational, the functionality of these businesses to find out if there is anything to be concerned about. I assume that would only be in the auditor's office. I assumed. And by the way, I'm glad you brought it up, the fact that it is in the legislature as well, because Josh Williams, I think this week on Thursday, is going to be dropping a piece of legislation that would require the type of oversight and the unannounced visits, not just one a year to get the license approved,
Right.
but multiple times to try to, catch them from staging of day of, oh, you're coming today? Look at what a glorious thing we have.
Bob, they were
What
putting
happens when I
on
come tomorrow?
Craigslist that they need children actors so that they can stuff some of these in some of these
Yes.
parts of the state. So
I saw that.
I mean, it's going to get really ingenious on their part, because these are tens of millions of dollars scams, right? Maybe what some people are saying,
Billions.
$1 billion. Really, it's really in the billions when it comes to Medicaid. So there is that component of it, and I'm prepared to take actions from day one and to use the tool sets. I have information systems. The problem we have today is Secretary of State cannot just reject somebody's business request to form in Ohio on face value. They have to actually do something wrong. So the role of Secretary of State is ministerial. What that means is they have to, just like voter records, voter registrations, in a sense, it's the same thing. They have to accept the voter registration, and then after the fact, after the fact, they have to investigate and or determine if there was something wrong in order to decertify or desolve. And so we're always playing not preemptive, but reactive in our terms of our policy.
Yeah. And, I don't want to pile on Frank LaRose here, our current Secretary of State. You've been doing a lot of that over the course of the 2 years that you've been trying to, kind of make the case for what needs to be done in this state. But have you become aware or been aware of any actions that he has taken to take this fraud seriously, to investigate all the things you're talking about wanting to do as Secretary of State? Is any of that going on right now in that office?
Not that I'm aware of, from the perspective of the business services fraud, the rampant business services fraud. His response explained, in effect, what his limitations were in law, which is what I just stated. I acknowledge that. He cannot reject a business, it's not a license, but a business formation. So in essence, he and everybody at the executive level is basically reminding Ohioans that they're limited in what they can individually do. What I don't understand is, how do we not get all of them in one room and say, I can provide this piece of the puzzle, you can provide that piece of the puzzle. Let's get at this. And in 30 days, let's give Ohioans an update and come back and say, we've tasked X amount of resources toward this problem. And this is what we've uncovered initially. And here's where we're going. And we're waiting for this legislature to do this. Make it a news conference. Tell the people of Ohio. And you know what? If I were the Republicans, I would run on that in 2026, because that is how aggravated people are with that. They're aggravated about property taxes, and they're aggravated about fraud, because every day they wake up and they got to go work for somebody else to steal our money and send it overseas. And on top of it, those people don't like our country, and they think it's their God-given right to defraud it, okay, because it's within their belief system, okay? So this is why our people, if they want to win in 26, and this is why this candidacy is propelling itself and getting endorsements, and it's going to get more endorsements, is because we take this stuff. I take this stuff seriously, and I've spent 20 years of my life protecting this country against a threat from abroad. I'm not about to let this state get defrauded from the same fraudsters that we were over there who were fighting militancy against us and their neighbors in the Horn of Africa.
Marcel, and I really appreciate you coming on to talk about your own campaign, but I'm going to ask you about the governor and the race for a second, but only because I'm tying it to what you just said and what you said a moment ago about we need a governor who is going to act a certain way about this fraud. What is your response to or your analysis of what Mike DeWine has said about this since Nick Shirley's expose, since the expose that has been going on, like you said, with Mehek and Jack and superstar John Rocker, among others, coming from Florida to investigate here in Ohio. But since all of the fraud that we have learned of and what you have talked about, Mike DeWine, first of all, his office issued a statement saying, fraud's the cost of doing business. Literally said that. Dan Tierney, his top communications guy, said it's the cost of doing business. Mike DeWine seems wholly unconcerned about this, and I don't know why. He seems satisfied with just we've got great policies in place here. We're not like Minnesota where it's just a roll call check. We actually have to have butts in seats for these centers to get their money and so forth. So your reaction to DeWine's reaction, Marcel, and then secondly, do you have a thought on the type of governor we need to do the things that you just said we have to do, especially when you as a Secretary of State would be, front and center with respect to this fraud?
I found his response to be tone deaf, and I found it to be protective of his legacy. The reality is it reminds me of the way we responded during COVID, right? We turn it over to the bureaucracy. There's a difference. My opponent's running on this idea that he's a seasoned administrator. We don't need somebody sitting back and letting the bureaucracy wreck the lives of our businesses, wreck the lives of our pocketbooks. We need somebody who's going to get on top of that bureaucracy, set a clear vision and guidance, and then go ahead and put forward real transparency on what's taking place and hold people accountable. There's a big difference between being a passive leader or manager, I would say, and being an active leader. And that's what I did in the military as a lieutenant colonel. And so what I saw and what I heard with respect to the governor is just, it's wholly unacceptable at this point in time. Okay. And with that at the top, I understand why, in part, some of the other executives aren't able to really get any traction on making moves. I still would be the guy that would be pushing it and making waves on that because this is too egregious. And it's just going to reduce confidence that people already have in their government. It was already a trust deficit. So you can't even bother to lecture people about process. What I read when I read a 10-part statement from his office was I read a lecture on process. We don't want to hear about process. We want to hear about what you're doing right now to close and mitigate the risk, the gap, the loop that we have in this issue. And that revolves building a whole of government approach between every cabinet agency and every executive agency to get at this. And you want to know something? Where was the leadership? Vice President Vance. What did he say? They're standing up an entity to tackle this straight out of the White House. They're assigning a type of attorney on this to the Department of Justice. Guess what? We need to have a mirror approach here in the state of Ohio. Let's set that up and let's work with the White House directly. And we need to involve Department of Homeland Security in this. And if these people in any way were naturalized U.S. citizens, and we do find that they criminalized and took advantage of our system, they should be denaturalized and deported without question.
Yeah, that is something that the administration has been calling for and talking about, denaturalizing. And of course, the left just considers that to be completely unacceptable because these people are, they're brown and black people. Talking about the Somalis in particular, they're brown and black people. And do you feel like, Marcel, that is playing an outsized role in the looking the other way? Because in Minnesota, in Ohio, and anywhere else where this is happening, because it seems as though if you condemn and criticize criminality, and the criminals in the particular case are of a protected class, a marginalized group, a racially marginalized group, or what have you, you run the risk of being called a bigot. And nobody wants to crack down en masse, especially if there's a massive ring on a group of people that's only going to earn them, condemnation as bigots or racists.
Well, if you're a traditional Republican like my opponent, you are afraid of being called a bigot or whatever. But if you're me and you realize that this is existential to the future of our country in dealing with this rampant criminality, that it's sinking our system, you don't have a problem with that. Let me tell you what I think. It's not about so much, even for the folks who are defending them on the basis of skin color or whatever the ethnic background. This is being perpetrated by all people of all backgrounds, by the way. This isn't just the Somali community that has been front and center. It's a number of other ones here in Ohio.
It is. They're the most high profile because of Nick Shirley's expose.
It is, and there's a high percentage of folks that are on a government assistance program that exists that are in that community and for 10 plus years. So the data and the statistics don't mislead on that. It's pretty evident. But it's the money, man, Bob. It is the money behind this, because this is flowing back into the Democrat coffers. They have 2 representatives right now in Columbus, state house reps, that did take donations from daycare, home health services. We could see that. So we can't know exactly unless you want to deep dive on it. People should do that here in Ohio and find that out. But it's the federal government passes $5.7 billion more this weekend, right? That allows this flow to come into the states. And then the way the states look at it, it's like, oh, this is free chicken. Let's get on this. And then all of a sudden you got these PPOs, this Blue Cross Blue Shield. I just saw this on the what is the guy on the Daily Caller, Matt Walsh.
Matt Walsh.
He did a great thing on this. He showed they made a video in Somalia encouraging them. Why encourage just Somalis to open up daycares? But they literally know their audience and they know who's going to carry this federal money that's going to go back and portion into them. So they're getting a cut. Then the Somalis, who are the frontline work for that, are getting a cut. And then they're flowing it back into the political party system. And that's giving them the top cover for them to continue to get more SNAP benefit programs to continue. And this whole thing is washing out in front of our face. And it doesn't take a genius to see that this is a follow the money proposition. And if we don't think that some Republicans got in on this, Republicans, some of them did. And that's the difference between myself as a candidate. I can call that out. And I don't have a problem doing that. We need to start policing ourselves. Everybody does. We all need accountability from each of us at every level.
No question about it. I saw a number, and I think it was Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, was doing an interview yesterday, and he said as much as maybe $300 to $600 billion a year in fraud is being taken from the American taxpayers through schemes like these, not just in these 2 states, but all over the country. And that's an extraordinary thing when you think about it. When you think about, we're talking about pushing up toward trillions of dollars. We got a $38 trillion national debt or something like that. And some of the most important people in our government have talked about how much lower that would be if we actually were able to identify, wipe out, and prosecute and claw money back, but most importantly, prosecute the fraudsters who are responsible for it. That's what DOJ was supposed to do, and it got off to a good start on, and I don't think we ever completed that job. But Marcel, just your thoughts on that. Our money and our country would be in such a better place if we just forget about bad spending decisions on sending money overseas and all the other things that DOJ rightfully called out. But just the fraud, the American taxpayer dollars that are being taken from them right here within our own, 50 states, with people who are in charge who don't care, or who, as you say, Republicans or Democrats, may be getting a little bit of a taste of those things as well. Any thoughts?
Yeah, without a doubt, our country, it's existential that we take this and prioritize it at the very top of our effort for good governance. At the same time, we went from a $74 billion budget from 2022 in the state. We're spending $105 billion. And they tell us that's what, 30 or 40% of that is from federal program money. So that means right there, as we were just discussing, a portion of that is the fraud of the $105 billion that we're spending. And that is lining the pockets of people with ill intentions. And so, we can't look at these issues in a singular fashion. We need to stand up a task force, again, across the line. We need to put these executive level agencies to the task. We need to not accept just what the bureaucracy tells us, go along to get along. Republicanism in this state is going to ruin it for us. It's going to keep a lot of people home. My candidacy prevails for Secretary of State this May 5th, 2026. You will have a real action agent who has real world experience tackling these problems of threat finance, as well as voting insecurity and other problems with invalid voting and registration. And this is the opportunity you have. And if I am on the ticket, I will uplift the Republican ticket in November, because disaffected voters who don't want the same brand of really vanilla Republicanism will see that there's somebody who's an action agent for them. They will come out and they will vote. It will uplift all Republicans on the ballot. And that is why I believe we're going to be getting a lot more endorsements. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to come here today and lay out my case to you and this great audience.
Well, yeah, you do a phenomenal job of that every time you speak. Any other interviews I've seen you on as well, you really do a phenomenal job of presenting your case as to why this race is so important and why you're the right guy for it. On the screen, you can see people right now. That's Marcel's website, Sturbridge for Ohio, SturbridgeForOhio.com. There's a donate button there that for an unfortunate reason is hiding behind my logo. Don't let that hide. Hit the donate button there to help Marcel's campaign. He's doing an amazing job. And I really, really feel like that Butler endorsement is one of many that are coming over the course of the next couple of months. Marcel, thank you for coming on. Thanks not only for coming on, but most importantly, let me drop this off the screen as I say goodbye. But most importantly, thanks for the work you're doing on exposing this fraud and talking about what can be done at the state level. I think we have all been very, very frustrated, to use a gentle word, by Mike DeWine's response and by the response of most of the other state office holders. We do get some action from the legislature. Like I said, people like Josh Williams. And if somebody like you is in that office, in the Secretary of State's office, I know we're going to have people fighting for us to end that fraud, save us our money, and hopefully clean this mess up. So I really appreciate your exposing it right now, and you're making this a centerpiece of your campaign. It's not all about just fixing the election system and our registrations and so forth. You take a lot of other things very seriously. So I have great respect for that, and I thank you.
I thank you. I respect you and your audience. Always great to be with you. Have a great day.
Marcel Sturbridge, candidate for Secretary of State, very good guy, and if you don't know his backstory by now, you should learn it. He's a 20-year Air Force intelligence officer, retired obviously, and he is relentless in making sure that Ohio's elections are secure, that registration is reserved only for those who are American citizens, and that you prove who you are with the photo identification in the state of Ohio. And that if you are on the rolls in 2 or 3 different places, those are cleaned up immediately. Marcel is on the job. I really feel like he would be a tremendous asset to the state of Ohio. So please consider giving him your support from a voting and a financial donation perspective. All right. It's 9 o'clock, so we're pushing up on the end here. Quick visit back to the chat room because I love you guys. And let's see how we're doing on the like side of things here. I know there are a lot of people in there reminding everybody to hit that like button. Looks like 188 people are watching at this moment in time, only 75 likes. There should be 188 likes. Seriously, it's support the channel, support what we're doing. If you find it important, we have to tell the algorithms that you like it so that it will continue to push us out to more people and grow more people as well. Quick look at, like I said, at the chat room. Who is running against Acton in the primary? They don't have anybody. To my knowledge, Tim Ryan said, nope, don't want it. Sherrod Brown decided to go for the Senate again. Those are the only other 2 names I'm aware of. I don't think any other Democrats are actually in this. There isn't a primary for Amy Acton on the governor's side of things. Jim says, I gave to the Sturbridge campaign. I encourage others to do likewise. Election integrity is the issue. Dems win by cheating, and not only in 2020. I don't disagree. They do. That's exactly what they do. Let's see. Kirsten, he says, here's another great video message from Marcel. I love that. These are the kind of things, by the way, that we're going to share in locals, because then they'll stay there. It won't be just while the show is live and the chat room is open. Want you to share. Kirsten, upload that video if you would in locals and make that a post so that we can get more people engaged and active in what we are trying to do. Zelda in the chat says, go Marcel, let me know when and how I can get a yard sign. Our team in general is always last with the yard signs for some reason. Lois Irene says, toss all the state level incumbents out. That might need to be done. I am Roz says, Charlie, are you suffering with Chantel with me? Oh, okay. I think they're talking about Chantel Brown in the district. Sarah says, I really, really like Marcel. Just Jan says, Marcel seems wiser than many running for office. He speaks to what matters to me. Did you notice the difference, by the way, between Marcel's interview today and Casey Putch's interview with me on Friday that I recapped in the first hour. I mean, 100% substance here. Not vitriol, anger, and shouting, just pure substance. And what I got from Casey, like I said, was very little substance and a whole lot of anger and a whole lot of, boy, I hate Vivek Ramaswamy, don't you? I don't know. That's what I heard. Bob, instead of the left, you just say the Democrats. Not sure where guys like Max Miller are finding moderates to compromise within the party. Let's see. Accountability. NCN says accountability in government sounds like it will never happen to many politicians. Many politicians are there to reap, not to help citizens. Sturbridge is impressive. Zelda says no more property taxes for primary residences. When people oppose this and say, what about our schools? Boo-hoo, just bring up all the fraud. Thank you. Great point. Great point. Every time I talk to a state legislator about getting rid of the property taxes, they say, what about the schools? What about funding local governments? And I say, then cut spending, not just cut spending in other places, cut fraud, end the fraud, save the money, use that to fund the government, the smaller governments and the schools. Exactly correct. Let's see. B. Butts agrees. Yes, there was a big difference in the interviews. Buckeye Therese says Brown doesn't want to work. Which Brown are we talking about? Sherrod Brown? I'm not sure. I've only known two Marcells. One speaks wisdom and one didn't speak at all. I'm going to have to plead ignorance on that second Marcel. But that's where I'm going to wrap it because it is 9:04. Everybody, thank you for watching. If you're watching live and then participating in the chat, God bless you. Now let's take the chat over to locals. Okay? Become a subscriber. Like I said, Rumble is the show. Locals is the war room. That's where we strategize and we plan and we discuss and we debate and we get things ready for the next step. That's what it's all about. Join the locals community that we have set up. It's on the screen right now, that red button that says join. Click that, create your locals account and join us. You can be a free member or you can be a strictly speaking insider. And you'll have access to a lot more things, including special interviews, special commentary, special town hall meetings, and things that we won't put out there on the regular Rumble channel. So make sure you subscribe to Locals. That's where this conversation can continue and grow and where you can help support this channel and what we are trying to accomplish. So please join us there and share this information with everybody. Grassroots is where it's at. That's what we have to do to grow these numbers, make them bigger. We need grassroots organizers and activists like you. So please share this information on your Facebook, on your Twitter, on your Instagram, wherever it is that you occupy social media space, as well as your emails and your text messages. Tell everybody we're here and let them know. All right. Thanks, everybody. As always, be well, be safe, and stay free. We'll see you tomorrow. But don't forget to keep your notifications on. Keep your notifications on. If you are following the channel, keep your notifications turned on and make sure they're turned on your phone too, okay? Because sometimes a default iPhone setting would be for Rumble to have the toggle off on notifications. If you want your notifications on when we drop new content on this show and on this channel, you need to make sure that you have those turned on your phone, okay? Or whatever it is, wherever it is you consume it. So we want you to make sure that you're up to date on everything. So now, be well, be safe, and stay free. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.